Hello, welcome back to Toys Thursday with Johnny Tiger. The date is July 2nd, 2020. I have no idea which week into the quarantine or social distancing or lockdown this is. Suffice to say, this is month number 4. So, yeah, do the math yourself. um, but as usual, lockdown or no lockdown, we're here to enjoy some geeky moments. And today, I'm going to be talking about one of my personal holy grails and one of my favorite action figure and video game characters. You're seeing, well, if you can see the screen, you're looking at the stunt double of that action figure right now. This is Sagat from Street Fighter. And the one we have showing on screen right now is the one produced by Sota and in the early 2000s. This is the 10-inch rotocast version of Sagat. Just look at the muscular detail on this guy. This is one seriously muscular dude. Now, for those of my audience that uh, don't have eyesight or are visually impaired and can't see the screen and might not know what the character Sagat look like. I will attempt to describe him, although since I can't see him myself either, uh, my description may be off by a little bit. So those of you who are sighted and are a fan of the game, please do not get uh, 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 annoyed or angry because I describe him in error. So basically, Sagat, we're going to do a little bit of his background. Sagat is one of the 4 original Street Fighter villains, although his motivation was a little bit different from the rest of the villains. Master Bison, the big boss, the head villain, mostly just wanted to rule the world and destroy everybody. The boxer, Balrog, uh, just wanted money and gambling and women. And the alluring and charming Vega just was a sadistic, psychotic killer. So basically, those 3 guys that were hanging out with Sagat were bad guys. They were like almost no redeeming quality, any one of them. But Sagat, very different. You see, Sagat's original motivation was vengeance, because during the World Warrior Tournament, I believe was in the first Street Fighter, Sagat was the final challenger who fought the protagonist or the hero of the game, his name Ryu. So the Muay Thai kickboxer champion Sagat faced down against the karate fighter Ryu in the end of the first World Championship. Now Sagat was actually winning that bout despite it being a lot larger and slower, but he was clearly winning until Ryu cheated him out of that win by tapping into some voodoo dark power that no one ever heard of before, called the Hado or Hadu, depending on which version you want to go by. I don't speak Japanese hardly at all, so I'm just going to go by what I understand. So now to call it the force or call it magic, call it dark power, call it hado, uh, any which way. That was the only reason Ryu could beat this world champion. And when he did that, he left Sagat with a massive scar. You guys can probably see it here on his chest. Basically, when Ryu hit him, the his his uppercut went all the way up the chest and left a huge scar on the guy. So ever since then, Sagat joined up with the villains for the specific purpose of one day being able to avenge himself uh, and have a rematch against his chief rival, Ryu. So his purpose wasn't exactly evil, more misguided and angry and vengeful. And then later in the game, later in the later Street Fighter stories, Sagat actually was able to put his rage and his resentment aside and became one of the most powerful and noble uh, martial artists in the Street Fighter pantheon. Backstory aside, this character is just kind of goofy. Goofy enough for you to think he is a serious threat. But at the same time, if you think too much on it, you just realize how goofy this character design is. In the final four stages of the initial Street Fighter, you have Master Bison, who was basically this alien, psycho, inhuman being dressed up like a red communist soldier. You have the Matador Spanish Vega, who dressed very fittingly, just looked like a very fancy Spaniard. And then you have Balrog, the boxer, who was dark skinned, super muscular, and again, looked like your generic, very strong boxer type. And then you had Sagat, who at first you just really can't tell what he's supposed to be. This is a guy whose background was stage when you fight him. The stage was in Thailand, so you would think that you would face up against a Thai fighter. After all, even the game described him as a champion, the king, the emperor of Muay Thai kickboxing. So you would figure that they would put a Thai looking guy in there, but no. We end up with a 7'4" white guy with an eye patch in there. A 7'4" guy who's dressed up in kickboxing attire with bandages on his arm, bandages on his shin, boxing shorts, which is actually soft fabric on this action figure. I imagine that if you have a mind to, you can pull the shorts down, although I don't know why you would want to. Anyway, a lot of people do weird things with action figures. Uh, this is a 7'4" white as white can be, white guy who's supposed to be the emperor of Muay Thai, and he has an eye patch, and so he's kind of like a pirate. Uh, why is he blind in one eye? Well, actually that gets explained in a more complicated story. Uh, Basically, it goes that during one of the fights where someone challenged him, before he killed the person blinded him in one eye. Uh, so that will require us to go deeper into the background of Sagat. So if you're interested, just look his backstory up on YouTube or on Google. It's actually quite enjoyable. I really enjoy this character's backstory. When I was 11 years old or 10, I can't quite remember, that was when Street Fighter 2 first became available. in arcade all over the world. And I remember after school every day, my brothers would want to go and hang out at the arcade and play Street Fighter. And I remember I would get dragged along with them. Eventually, my older brother David moved on to other hobbies while my younger brother Peter was really, really getting into video gaming. And one day, when my younger brother Peter was at the arcade, he kind of sadly lamented, "Oh God, it's so boring to play on your own. And Johnny, why can't you learn to play video game?" And I said, "Because I'm blind. I wouldn't know what I'm doing." And Peter said, "I bet I can teach you." So rather than putting in the quarter or whatever it cost at the time and try to beat the game, Peter and I started to doubling up and going into uh, versus mode. And while he started to describe the characters to me and describe their moves to me and show me how to execute them and also show me what different sounds were related to uh, different techniques and moves. For those of you who don't think that blind people can play video games, I suggest for you to head over to the Johnny Tiger YouTube channel. You can find it on johnnytiger.com. And in one of the older Johnny Tiger episodes, I showed you a bit of video gaming. Or you can simply search for blind video gamer here on YouTube. And I promise you, you will find it quite enlightening that yes, we as blind people, we can indeed play video games. It takes a lot more work, takes a lot more uh, commitment, dedication, and time, but it can be done and quite enjoyable as well. So gradually, my younger brother showed me how to play the original Street Fighter 2, and then we moved on to other fighting games, and the rest, as I say, were history. But I still remember learning all the various characters, and my favorite character to use was Sagat. He was big, and he was strong, and he was not very slow. He had really good long range attack. He had very good short range defense and offense. And again, I'm a little bit biased here, but because Sagat is blind in one eye, and I am totally blind, so I kind of feel a little bit of kinship there. Uh, Sagat is a white guy learning how to fight in Thailand. I am a Taiwanese, Chinese, Canadian trying to get along in the martial arts scene in North America. Sagat has his main modes of attack. Almost every one of his special moves were tiger related, and you just can't pass that up. Me being Johnny Tiger, you know, Tiger. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's a no-brainer. I have to be uh, more associated with Sagat. I mean, I'm not 7'4" and I'm not white. Uh, and he definitely got a hell of a lot more muscle than I do. But hey, who's counting anyway? So while I've been talking, you guys been getting backside front view of this Sagat Rotocast action figure. And you might be thinking, so is that what you're showing us today? Is this Rotocast 10-inch Sagat figure? Was that the Holy Grail you were talking about? Well, actually, not quite. You see, ever since Sota Toys came out with the Street Fighter action figures in the early 2000s, I have been wanting a Sagat action figure. So you can say I spent the last 20 years trying to get one. Eventually, Sota went out of business, and now the Sota Street Fighter action figures are fetching ridiculous amount of money on the secondary market on eBay. So even though there's a lot of Sagat out there, I refuse to pay $120 for it because I know back then when Sota first made the Sagat action figure, it was only like $12 or something like that. And okay, $12 going if I have to double it, 24. Let's say I triple it, 36. Let's say I add more. Let's say I pay $50 for it. I'm okay. I'm fine. But I'm not going to pay over $100 for something that's produced 20 years ago and only cost like $12 back then. No, that to me, no matter how much I like the action figure or how much I like the character, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to let someone gouge me like that. So one day I was browsing on eBay and I saw this uh, auction say Soda Street Fighter action figure Sagat. Price was $45. You can imagine how happy I was. I didn't even stop and consider what version of Sagat I was buying. I just hit the button and entered my credit card number, and when Sagat finally showed up at my doorstep, I was so disappointed because I thought I was buying the Sagat that would fit in with my 6-inch collection. I wasn't expecting this 10-inch rotocast version to show up. I totally forgot to check if this was the version they were talking about. I just assumed that it was the version I wanted. Now, some people might say, why are you disappointed when you got a bigger figure than you were looking for? Well, it's all about how it can display with other characters. The normal release of Sagat stands about 7.5 inches tall, maybe just under 8 inches actually. Uh, he would fit right in with the other Street Fighter characters on my shelf. Sagat is tall, but he is not 10 feet tall. He's uh, foot 4, 7'4". So even if you allow a bit of a stretch, a 7.8 inches figure still look okay, blending in with the others. But when you have a 10-inch action figure, uh, that just doesn't work. This cigar is great. He's really well made, but he doesn't fit in with anything. He's too big, too tall. Doesn't work on the shelf. So yeah, I was really disappointed and sad, and the search continued. And then last year, when I was browsing on Google, I suddenly saw this new company called Storm Collectibles coming up with their own version of Sagat. And finally, during my trip to California to visit with my beautiful girlfriend earlier this year, I finally was able to find the version of Sagat by Storm Collectibles. And he turns out to be a really, really good action figure. And I'm going to switch him in there right now. Don't have a lot of workspaces, so I'm got to move slowly so I don't break things. Here he is. This is Sagat, made by Storm Collectible. Right away, you guys can tell this one, well, I hope you can anyway, this one is smaller, uh, but look at the musculature on this guy. Giving him a slow turn so you guys can see. Look at the muscles on his back. It's incredible. The sculpture on this is amazing. Now, this one doesn't only look good. This one has a lot of articulation. It, the head moves, shoulder, arm, bicep, wrist, waist, hip, knee, toes, feet, ankles, everything that you would want an action figure to move, uh, this thing can accomplish. And again, just look at the sculpt on this beast of a man. Now this action figure of Sagat came with a lot of accessories. He came with three different heads, with three different expressions, and he came with a whole slew of hands. So depending on you want to pose him open-handed or making a fist or etc. etc. There's a lot of hand options, but I'm not going to show all those little accessories here on the screen. You can actually can look at them on a more official YouTube review for this guy. But I'm going to show you one of the accessories that make him going above and beyond other action figures. This is the energy effect. This big spiky thing is a fireball or whatever uh, projectile he fires at his opponent when he's fighting. They even included that, and they even included a stand, a clear plastic stand, so it can look like it's hovering in front of him, ready to be fired at his opponent. And this stand is adjustable, so you can have this low or high, and just like how he can throw them high or low in the video game. How cool is that? Now, this Sagat is usually around 130 Canadian dollar. But when I was in California, I was able to find him at a discount for about 69 US dollar, which came to about 92 Canadian dollar, which was a definite uh, steal for something of this quality. This guy worth every penny I spent on him and worth all these years of waiting for a Sagat action figure. Another interesting feature of this guy, sorry, bounced the camera, readjusting. Another interesting feature of this guy is his part of his body, like his muscles here, the softer rubber. The arms are hard plastic, but the torso kind of softer rubber, so you can actually squish him a little bit. I don't know why they did it this way. I'm actually a little bit concerned about this kind of construction because quite often rubber torso like that tend to crack a few years down the road when they get dried out. So I hope that's not going to happen because this will be an expensive action figure to replace. So, since I'm so impressed with the version of Sagat by Storm Collectibles, is that it? Am I absolutely happy with the end result of my long uh, hunt for this particular character? Sadly, no. Because no matter how good they did this Sagat, there's something really, really wrong with him. He stands 9 inches tall, which, yes, he's a little bit smaller than the Rotocast version, but he's still way too big. I'm going to show you guys a comparison here. This guy here is Thunderhawk, also from Street Fighter. This was the Thunderhawk version uh, released by Sota in early 2000. You guys can see, comparing to Sagat here, Thunderhawk is tiny. Look at that. And that's just no, that's just a no-no. Because if you look at the official biography, Thunderhawk stands 7 feet 7 inches tall, while Sagat is only 7 feet 4 inches tall. So if anything, Thunderhawk is supposed to be bigger than Sagat, not uh, looking like an underfed person next to him. So this is a bit of a public announcement for those of you who may be thinking about getting a storm collectible Sagat. Even though they say they make the action figure to fit with the 6-inch action figures because they say 1/12 scale, so that usually means they go with the 6-inch guy. That's not always the case. When Storm Collectible make big figures like Sagat, quite often they get carried away and they make them way too big. If they take uh, an inch and a half off of this Sagat and narrow him down just a little bit, because in addition to being too tall, he is obscenely bulky. If they can narrow him down a little bit and take about 1.5 inch off his height, he would be the perfect Sagat in my collection. But as it is, even though he is a well-made action figure, come with a lot of accessory, really detailed and all that, standing next to his other Street Fighter brethren from the early days, he doesn't fit in without you having to make him crouch down and just look a little bit smaller. That is really my only complaint about this action figure, but still, I'm really glad I got him, and I considered continue to try to hunt down the old Sota version. But you know, I think overall, even though this Sagat is too big, too bulky, he is overall a better action figure than the old one. So I no longer feel quite as compelled to spend a lot of money on the old Sota version of this character. Now, if I ever see him going for $40 on eBay, I definitely will still snatch him up. But the need to have him on the shelf is no longer as strong as it has been in the last 20 years because I have now owned 2 Sagat action figures, and he almost fell over, and both of them have been really well made. Before I go, I'm going to give you a final comparison. The 10-inch Sagat next to the 9-inch Sagat. The The area is not wide enough for me to put both of them side by side, but I think you guys get a good view there of how they compare to each other. They're both really well detailed, both really well made. One is slightly taller than the other, uh, but it's quite obvious that both of them are too big to blend in with your regular Street Fighter collection. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, stay safe and have a good night.